All right, everyone, I should be live here. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course, I do see chat is working. Sabercat666 said Clank. Bana Layman said Clank. Good morning and congrats on one-shotting the exam. We will be talking about that briefly. I'm fairly happy. Morgan Heverin, good morning from Jericho. And Bullish says peace in. I see a lot of people talking about Atomic Heart. I guess that's a video game. I don't know. Let's see. Yes, we are live on Rumble. Although it's not telling me how many people are watching live. It's yeah. Well, we'll figure that out in a bit. Anyway, first update of the day. This has nothing to do with our news stories. I did take the Dutch driving theory exam today, and I passed on the first try. Apparently, only 46% of people actually do that. And of course, I'm not Dutch, so I'm at a disadvantage. A person from the Netherlands, at least, they've been raised on these roads. They're kind of going to know some of the idea, at least like the road signs and stuff like that, what those mean. I had to cram, so I used the theory examen site and crammed for several weeks. It is therefore sushi night tonight. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Oh yeah, I do have a crumb or something on my beard. What the fuck is that? Nah, it is a piece of paper for no apparent reason. Thank you for helping me catch that. Jesus. Yeah, so yeah, I passed the Dutch theory exam. I'll be making a video probably about that for people who are from the United States or like foreign countries, because not everyone's used to the European or Netherlands style rules of the road. In some parts, I did better than others. I did well on hazard perception. I did fine on the knowledge. I would have not passed if it hadn't been for going back through the last section, the insight section, they call it. There was one question I wasn't quite sure of on roundabouts and signaling. And at first, it was, you're about to enter the roundabout. You want to take the third exit. So you have to go around the roundabout. Can you signal left here? And of course, the answer is yes. You actually can do that to tell people, hey, I'm going to be going to the leftern side, the leftmost side of the roundabout. That's the third exit. At first, I said no. And I was like, well, you're entering the roundabout, you're turning right into the roundabout. And so I got confused. Then I was like, oh, well, I did read something about being able to signal before the roundabout as well. Of course, if you're going straight, you're not signaling. If you're going right, you signal right. If you're going to the left, you signal left. And so I almost got caught up on that particular one. By the way, in the Netherlands, there are two different kinds of roundabouts. Well, technically three, if you count the ones, what are they called? Can't remember. They're the ones with the elevated section in the center to reduce conflict points. And I almost got that wrong. But thankfully, I managed to pass it. So I'm happy about that one. It is harder than the U.S. driver's test, but I will probably do a video with some tips and advice because there are some things that I noticed between both the practice exams and the actual exam that I think that people probably, especially if you have a U.S. Driver's license, you're used to U.S. roads. Hazard perception has one real big pitfall if you don't practice for it. Even if you know every road sign and everything else, all the rules of the road, hazard perception you might not pass if you don't know one simple thing with regards to the questioning there. I'll be talking about that in a video tomorrow. And by the way, no, I am not training to ride a bicycle. This is for actual automobiles. There are actually cars in the Netherlands. Not a banned account. Next, will Veritas apologize for defaming Pfizer? Yeah, possibly. Scott Steiner, the world's greatest ring announcer. Joe hasn't visited East Palestine yet. Hashtag where's Pete? Yeah, exactly. Joe is off in Ukraine. Pete Buttigieg is, wherever the hell he is. He's running a train right now. Not a banned account. Updates on Irish and Dutch farmland reappropriation. There's no real updates to give at this time. Protesting is ongoing. Resistance to selling the farms out to the government are ongoing. I'm not 100% sure. Honey Bunny, good morning, Sticks. Wanted to thank you for the suggestion for cooking Brussels sprouts. My fiance and I thought they were extremely tasty. Yeah, I don't understand why not just boil them and serve them with butter and a little bit of salt. I think that it's delicious. Yeah, it's nothing fancy, but, it just makes it easier. If it tastes good, eat it. I'll be eating plenty of eel tamaki later. Also, if I sound a little bit stuffed up still, I am a little bit, but my sore throat's gone. I'm not sick, like I don't have a fever or anything, but I'm still not at 100%. So 3 hours of sleep, feeling ill, and I still passed the Dutch driver's theory exam on the first go. So I'm feeling good about that. I was a little bit demoralized in the morning. I'm like, well, I really don't feel very well. I'm not sure how much focus I'm going to have. Thank you to the makers of 9 Energy Drink from right here in the Netherlands. Where are you made? In I'm not exactly sure, but wherever I'm in, your town gets a complimentary clank. Not a banned account. Will the Ukraine war win Joe the White House in 2024? It could. People in the United States do have a habit of not switching ships in the middle of the river, even if those ships are leaky. Heraclius 610 on Rumble. They make it clear they hate us, and when we propose leaving, they react viscerally. This is because they are parasites and or predators. The only solution is their complete annihilation. Yeah. Of course, you are referring to cats. Now, when we walk out the door, they just glower at us endlessly. They are a little bit parasitical when you think about it. Sort of a commensalistic relationship. Spy Returnal, Project Veritas crashing and burning is so delicious. I don't think it's that. I rue the day because Project Veritas has done some good shit. Now, a bunch of these people follow O'Keefe. He'll do his own thing, but it'll set him back several steps. Project Veritas, meanwhile, even if they go forward and they are trying to do investigative journalism, hundreds of thousands of people have abandoned them, thus de-amplifying what they say. I don't think it's a good thing at all. I think it's rather sad. James Flowers, good job. Proud of you, man. Well, thank you. So yeah, the first news story, of course, a run-up from this morning's main news coverage. James O'Keefe is out at Project Veritas. They have responded to his video here, which was leaked presumptively by somebody who was actually physically there. They do have a number of employees. And if you look at the response, and this is the part that I've been focusing on, and I did this morning, their response is kind of weirdly worded. It's shenanigans. It's curiously worded. Like they have an entire section where they talk about James O'Keefe. First, they say, well, he was a bad boss. You know, he gets irate and you know, disjuncted and shit. Then they talk about him misappropriating funds and their problem with the fact that he spent like 150 grand on black cars, whatever that is, music, DJs and stuff like that, and how that's misappropriation of funds. And that's a big problem under our laws that we operate under as a nonprofit. But the thing is, they're openly expressing that extends back for several years. So nobody thought to query him at the time. I mean, they had to have known that he was hiring a DJ, you know, 16 months ago, but nobody said anything until they wanted him gone. And the impetus for this was specifically an expose that they did not long ago, not long before he was initially shit-canned, and the shit-canning is complete now, on a certain pharmaceutical company that I will not name for the purposes of the YouTube live streams TOS. Yes, indeed, they did an expose on a certain company that shall not be named because they're godly. YouTube considers them to be the gold standard of all human wisdom and effort. And so they didn't want James O'Keefe there anymore. The investors there probably got nervous. They're like, well, I've got ties to these corporations. You're not allowed to do an expose on them. You're only allowed to do an expose on companies that won't shit can us, and it'll be bad for business. The stock will fall. Then how can I invest so much money in Veritas when I have less money? This is the way that corporatism works, interreliance. Now, as far as James O'Keefe goes, can I believe that he's a bit paranoid? Yeah, absolutely. He's gotten fucked around with by the feds multiple times. If he's hiring Magnum PI to look into the employees and make sure they're not dicking around, I'm not sure that I really care. It's a private company. They can do what they want, right? I hear that quote being used for the board of directors there that removed him from his CEO position, so I'll just throw it back in their face. Can I believe that he gets irate sometimes and bitches people out? Of course. Yeah, bosses do that. Believe it or not, this actually happens in a work environment, especially when, again, you have the stress of the feds breathing down your neck every time you do anything. And you're constantly getting sued by people in frivolous lawsuits that typically fall through, but you have to defend yourself legally. It takes a lot of time. Can I imagine that he used, investors' money for flights or cars? Of course I can. He's got to go to 5 fucking things in a single week. Of course. That's not misappropriating funds. there's nothing wrong with it. As far as legality goes, they're not even claiming that it was illegal. They're just claiming that it's problematic. We have a problem with it. What's happening right now is that Project Veritas, over the last 24 hours, has lost about 50,000 YouTube subscribers and about 250,000 on Twitter. They are crashing and burning as we speak. It's still, there was a live counter that people were posting the other day. They lose enough followers on there won't even be a live counter anymore. It won't even exist. It'll get taken down because it's no longer a notable enough account to have a live counter for the Twitter feed or something. James O'Keefe, meanwhile, is unscathed. He's doing fine. He already had a big presence anyway individually, so I mean, it's not going to stop him. The problem here is that it's going to slow James O'Keefe down. And if Project Veritas really is going to continue to do investigative journalism, if they don't completely collapse from this or sell out, like let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, it was O'Keefe. They genuinely had a problem with him. They're going to continue trying to do the same thing, though, as an organization. They've been slowed down, too. All of a sudden, something like 15% of their audience has wandered off over the course of 24 hours' time. That is unsustainable, and that hemorrhaging will continue. It's not done. It's going to be probably about linear today. So, I mean, they might end up under 1 million Twitter followers within the next 48 or 72 hours. That means that there are limits on their capability of broadcasting their material. And the people, by the way, proactively removing themselves from the page disproportionately are going to be the ones that engage with content. They're going to be the ones because they're actually there. We know that they're active accounts because they chose to unsubscribe now, don't we? We don't know that about the ones that are remaining subscribed. They could be inactive for 3-4 years. They're not even interactive with the content. So I have a feeling this is going to be a big goddamn problem for Project Veritas. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the investors go along with O'Keefe and abandon them. Let's see. Bison American Club, face fuchsia, poop, shape, poop. I don't know what that means. Oatmeal and whiskey. Hey, Sticks, longtime viewers. Someone who messed with psychedelics, I have a question for you. What is the difference between lucid dreaming and astral projection? Congrats on the driver's license. Well, lucid dream is something just as simple as you become aware of the fact that you're dreaming. And so you're sort of in that state. Astral projection is when you're traveling consciously or unconsciously out of your body and witnessing things distant from yourself. Claws and Paws, Order of the Cat, sent $1. No comment, thank you. Captain Cannabis also sent $1 without a comment. Thank you as well. Ozzy's Robots. Nonprofits are tricky. Lots of rules can submarine you in an audit. Looked at having my museum as one, but was too restrictive unless you're a Clinton. Yeah, if you're part of the Uniparty, you can get away with murder. Quite literally in the Clintons' case, allegedly. That Manx guy. Morning, Sticks. Good morning. Friendly Neighborhood Sawyer. Booked a driving lesson for next week. Late is better than never. Westfield 90. Conservative media in suicide mode. Project Veritas, Crowder, Daily Wire, Tim Pool. What is going on? Well, this has nothing to do with the Matrix upending thing, a la Quartering and Tim Pool or Crowder and Daily Wire. This is a genuine internal squabble. A lot of people think that it's because infiltrators managed to get in at Project Veritas. Like over the years, they've infiltrated them, waiting for a moment that they can shit-can James O'Keefe using whatever excuse they have. Can you say related to 2024 election especially? Yeah, I think that that's the real reason. Even beyond maybe the pharmaceutical reason. That was just the trigger. That was like the, hey, okay, now we spring the trap sort of moment. The reasoning behind it, though, isn't really to protect certain companies. It's to protect the political elite. They fear James O'Keefe. He's too effective. The Spence Fencer, new organization's name, Federal Ministry of Truth. Soapmaker 19, good morning, Sticks and Clankers. Not a banned account. Can we count on fortification to protect democracy? Yes, democracy with a large D. Some unipartyists. Next, we'll talk about the national divorce situation. Marjorie Taylor Greene weighing in the other day. This was not a great take for her. She's getting shit-canned even by people that are even beyond the uniparty. We need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. I explained this morning about how this is impossible. Everyone I talk to says this. Well, then you should talk to people that are a little bit more sane. From the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to the Democrats' traitorous America Last policies, we are done. Speaking for other people, of course. There are plenty of people that are pissed off about the state of the U.S. Most people agree it's not headed in the right direction, although that's been a consistent feature for well over a century. I would agree. The United States is headed in a bad direction, but here's the thing. When you say that you think it's going in the wrong direction, you can be like a liberal Democrat and think the same thing. You think the Republicans are too powerful. Oh my God, the House is obstructing. The Supreme Court's being activistic. People have done this for a very long time. It also happens in other countries. There is no solution to the fact that a plurality of the population, sometimes a majority, will be pissed off at the way things are going. But there is no formulaic methodology by which a national divorce would work at the state level. Here's why. In red states, there are blue cities. In blue states, there are red counties. It has to do with population. The majority of the land area of California, for example, is red. The majority of the counties there, if you were to count it within the civic construct, are run by Republicans. Some of them are quite far right. But it's run by blue staters. It's run by people from the urban areas because they have more population. Illinois is overwhelmingly red. Most of it is farms and forests. But Chicago exists. What I pointed out earlier is that it would be difficult to pull this. I mean, you couldn't pull it off at the state level. It would be literally impossible. You'd be carving the United States apart into a jigsaw puzzle, and it would be insolvent. It would collapse immediately. That would cause even worse problems than the ones that we're dealing with under our current non-leadership. If you were to take a more prosaic approach, you could carve it apart among counties. That would be a little bit better. The problem is that there would be effectively no Pacific portage for the red states, and there would be effectively no capability of self-sustenance for the blue states that resulted from that. You would have to have a bunch of compromises and deals and trade, etc., nullifying the very concept of bothering with the national divorce, at least for economic reasons. It wouldn't make any difference. It would be bullshit. Another thing is that it would be better just to stand your ground and run the whole country from one perspective and seek to win and convince people to elect people that you happen to agree with. That's the way of strength. National divorce is the way of weakness. And also I would point out, and this is funny because it comes from the libertarians, and the Mises people literally follow me on Twitter. I would point out that when you say that the United States would be less able to engage in imperialism if there were, balkanization or quasi-balkanization, absolutely. And that's a great thing. Oh, so many lives are saved. See, the problem is China will step in and they'll do the same thing. If you ended up with a balkanized U.S. where the West Coast is run by a bunch of liberals that have to deal with all the bumpkins and the flyover states who wouldn't have portage, very quickly China would run the Pacific Ocean. The red states would have, Texas and Louisiana, so they'd still have Atlantic portage. They could still have a Caribbean green water navy or something. They wouldn't be capable of putting together the kind of systems necessary to actually maintain great power status. You would end up with China running half of the world and the European Union running the other half. Now, who is more authoritarian, for better or for worse? The U.S. in its current inception, fucking communist China, or the people in Brussels in the EU? Well, I hate to tell you this, but the only way to actually incept a national divorce of this kind would be to scrap the Constitution anyway, which means that it would be pointless. You're destroying the country. Well, then just let it die on its own. You don't need the national divorce. If you think it's petering out, it's going into hell, let it peter out, go to hell, and collapse on its own. You're going to collapse it if you tried to do something like this anyway, because you would be eliminating the underpinnings from which it was founded. It wouldn't be there would be no United States. You'd have, I don't know, the Empire of Texas and then a couple of blue state blocks or something. None of them would be particularly formidable. They'd have a lot of resources, but they'd be squabbling amongst themselves, by the way. There's another logistic issue. Right now, you're talking about how the United States fails to function because of squabbling, disagreements between people about how to run things. If you were to withdraw everyone into echo chambers, and there would be plenty of fucking goddamn people, by the tens of millions, even with a more prosaic county by county separation, who would effectively be divorced of people of their own thinking. They'd have to, they'd have to sell their homes to someone who doesn't exist to go to the other side to buy a home that might not exist. It would cause chaos. It'd be tens of millions of people internally displaced in both countries. Even if you manage that, though, you have another problem. you have the problem whereby those echo chambers are going to be less able to engage in diplomacy with one another than prior. At some point, they would be engaged in a war. So when people are talking about a peaceful national divorce, really what they're talking about is, if not a civil war now, where you're firing shots to gain independence for some secessionary movement, you're talking about shots being fired. You're talking about an actual war later. Either way, there would be tens of millions displaced, tens of millions dead, possible nuclear conflict. By the way, there would be a disagreement over who gets the nukes. Diplomacy would have to be reestablished by whatever countries had formed from the Balkanization with all other countries in the world. It would be a shitstorm that would make all of the difficulties that virtually anyone in the United States currently faces look very, very tame. Yeah, oh my God, I've got difficulties. The liberals are trying to pass a law that I don't like. I've got difficulties. These fucking Christians are trying to ban abortion. That's nothing compared to what would happen if there were a national divorce. So yeah, the idea of dividing Byzantine style, it worked so well for people in the past. Every time a nation balkanizes, it gets so much better. When the Soviet Union balkanized, Russia was very much empowered by that. Yeah, the Byzantines did so well compared to the full-on Roman Empire that had come before them. And keep in mind, they were one of the more successful post-Balkanization groups. That was a peaceful national divorce. Did it work? No, not really. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. The Agao faces deep-fried corn and corn oil. Opinions? No thanks. I'll avoid that. Remy, national divorce is a slap in the face to every soldier who bled and died in the Revolutionary and Civil Wars. Yeah, true. Michael Murphy, if conservatives can't even conserve this country, what good are they? It would be its ultimate failure. Yeah, that's the other thing. Why wouldn't the same fucking thing just happen to whatever partition of the country you happen to agree with? Like ideologies and stuff don't change over time? Of course they do. That's why we have a constitution. The solution is expand and strengthen the constitution, especially the 10th Amendment, so that people are less subject to overarching governmental power. Left and right both believe that the government is abusing them. So simply shrink the government to limit the abuse and devolve some of its capabilities back to states where people can move more easily from one place to the other to escape whatever abuse or ideological system they don't like that they perceive of as being there, and call it a day. That's all you need to do. And by the way, there will be people who say, well, Styx is a boomer cuck for proposing such a thing. Oh, that's status quo. Well, it's not, but they'll use that particular reference. Yeah, so it's easier to convince everyone in the United States simultaneously to just uproot themselves and reorient themselves according to your chosen ideology, and then expect those echo chambers to react amiably in the future with each other without any foreign group ever gaining any dominance because of it. That doesn't make any sense at all. So no thanks on the national divorce. I am officially opposed. Aussie's robots. If SCOTUS did its job, we wouldn't want a divorce. Yeah, well, some people in the country would. Muzzle the legacy media. They're the real problem, spreading fear and hate in people's hearts. Just me. Appreciate you. Mr. Friendly Bee. Styx, the fact that you passed the Dutch driving license test on your first try is proof of your superior intellect. Well, I like to think of it that way. No, I'm just joking. No, it's proof that I crammed like a son of a bitch for several weeks. It's called effort. I will be talking about that tomorrow. Ministry of Wrongthink. What if James O'Keefe started another operation, but also brewed and sold coffee in the lobby as their own product? Could he register as a for-profit company to avoid having a board of directors? I don't know. I don't know how those laws work, which is why I wouldn't start a nonprofit. The Agao faces. Proza overdose. Opinions? You mean Prozac? Don't know. I don't know what happened if you took too much Prozac. Misael Fraga. Theodosius the Great managed to unite one last time. Andrew Espinoza. But remember, Styx, you moved to the Netherlands, so clearly your opinion on U.S. divorce is invalid. End sarcasm. Yeah, I've been told that too by people who want to discredit my argument. That's because they can't discredit it any other way. They have no debate for me. Because they're fucking stupid. What I'm pointing out is absolutely historically and economically true. The convolutions of a national divorce, even a peaceable one that even if everyone fucking goddamn agreed on it, even the external pressures would be too much potentially for it. So what the fuck do you think in a pragmatic real world scenario would happen? It would devolve into an actual civil war, in which a significant and awe-striking proportion of the population would die. Apache, congrats on the exam. How do you suggest red areas stop from being overrun by people fleeing blue states? Red go purple and blue areas stay blue. That's not what's happening, actually. But to look at Florida, for example, a lot of people have fled there from other states. Florida is more red than ever. It hasn't been this red in a fucking couple of generations. Texas is becoming more red, and that's despite immigration as well. My demographics or destiny crowd were incorrect once again. I warned them of this back in 2016. They swore up and down Texas was going to go blue by now. Well, it didn't. Greg Abbott did just perfectly fucking fine. So yeah, you don't need to worry about that. All you have to do is implement a better system. And if it is indeed better in general for the average person, people are won over to that ideology. Nola Secundus, why would I want to remain in a country where people don't think or look like me, are actively trying to destroy my culture? Well, there are other countries that you can go to potentially, or you can stand and fight for the country that you're in. I mean, if you want to abandon it, if you don't want to remain in it, that's fine. Giving ground is not the way of winners. Giving ground is the way of losers. Georgie Georgiev, I love how popular the word Balkanization is. You should come visit the Balkans. We are like a circus with guns and crazy people. Doesn't sound that bad, to tell the truth. Shit, you're going to try to sell me a pitch here. Visit Bulgaria, Serbia, Romania, Macedonia. We love each other. Yeah, I'd like to see the Balkan region sometime. It looks pretty cool. Ozzy's Robots. The left has gone too far with respect to what they teach kids, forcing what to inject in your body, ESG, banking, and tech censorship, among other things. They've tread on unprecedented ground, basic freedom. Yeah, so oppose them and do not give them ground. It's because a bunch of neocon cucks refuse to speak out against them that they're doing that. They're not a majority. They're a small minority of the population, but nobody's trying to stop them. Other than libertarians who get cast off as libertarian cucklords, and the whitest nationalist people, people like that. And then there's Core MAGA. They do something about it, but they're cast off as extreme too. And nobody's willing to speak out on their behalf. Rob S. Have you seen South Park Harry and Meghan episode? No, I do not keep up with anything regarding those grifters. Anything involving them is shit to me. Red Muskrat, would you consider doing a monthly show only on Rumble so we can speak freely? I hate censoring myself and you not being able to talk about certain things. Yeah, I could try doing something like that, but I've got a lot on my plate because I have a child now as well and a million other things going on. Ministry of Wrongthink, don't get married, invalidates your arguments. Don Jones, brilliant takedown of national divorce. Brouhaha. So, living in Southwest Ohio, I need a passport to visit Babylon. I mean, New York City or LA. My consolation is local activism. Tend to that, you can truly change and most directly affects you. Yeah, most people don't realize state laws supersede federal for most intents and purposes, but they keep talking about a national divorce. Well, if you're retaining your state, most of the laws you suffer under remain the same. What the fuck is the goddamn fucking point? The best thing you can do is exempt yourself from government by doing as much possible yourself or in your community voluntarily as you can. Local school syndicates. Mr. Smith knows how really good English. He can teach the kids English. Mrs. Smith over there is really great at growing things, and Mr. Smith's really great at pickling. Well, they've got a symbiosis going on. They trade, exempt yourself from the tax system too. Trade locally. Do whatever you can. Next news story. Live updates. Putin pulls back from nuclear arms treaty, signaling sharp break with West. Yes, the New START treaty, which has been in effect effectively since 2018, has been abandoned by the Russians. The United States threatened to before. And by the way, there was a recent leader. What was his name? It's the leader of the United States not that long ago. He pressured the Russians over this and managed to keep him in the START treaty, actually. Who was that? Oh, that's right. It was Donald fucking Trump. Joe Biden gets in there. Ukraine gets invaded. And now the START treaty is dead for the foreseeable future, which means that the United States and Russia will no longer cooperate on the number of nuclear missiles of various kinds and various types that are staged around various areas. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's just fucking great. Honestly, though, I don't think it causes World War III. Some people worry about that. What this really signals is that Russia wants leverage. So they withdraw from the START treaty, and they're hoping the United States and the West in general come back aboard to do diplomacy. And then they can say, well, if you recognize our claim to Crimea, maybe we'll sign the treaty again, which is a losing proposal for the Western world, by the way, to engage in such types of diplomacy. But it is damaging. It didn't have to happen. None of this had to happen. If there hadn't been any Hong Kong going on in the last couple of years, the person actually leading the United States would actually be leading it instead of being a puppet, and Putin never would have dared to invade Ukraine. Well, they'd probably be fast-tracked for NATO right now, and Russia wouldn't do jack shit about it because it'd be too fucking risky. But Joe Biden's an empty suit. Putin knows how the oligarchs running the U.S. will work because it's the same as the oligarchs that run Russia. So he doesn't give a fucking shit. Neither do the oligarchs that he was addressing when he said, we're going to withdraw from START. The Western world is degenerating. It's destroying its own traditions, which, by the way, parts of his speech were just a bunch of horseshit. They're meant for politically propagandistic reasons. But that doesn't mean that every part of it was entirely and completely wrong now, does it? The Western world is dismantling its traditions. Now, some people think that that's a good thing. It's a virtue, but I don't think that even they would claim that they're not. They openly proclaim that they want to dismantle tradition because they consider U.S. traditions to be evil. It's a colonialism and shit like that. Next news, Pepe Payne on Rumble left Texas because you can't expect Abbott to stand up for its conservative values. Cruel. I second the request for a Rumble exclusive stream, or do what Viva Frei does and do the second half only on Rumble. I won't do that. That hybrid approach is not something that I want to do, although it is working very well for him. I'd rather simply give people multiple places they can watch the stream and make the stream. But if there's anything particularly sensitive that I have to talk about, I wouldn't be able to put it on YouTube as a live stream. It'd have to be a Rumble exclusive. So you probably will get some of those in the future. But again, give me a little bit of leeway because when you're in a different country with a shit ton to do, like I have to take the physical driver's exam. I also write, I also edit, I do a dozen other things for work, and I have a child. My plate is very, very full. Rocky, can you understand ish? Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I get the Frank Garrett reference. That was one of my favorite parts. I was laughing so hard last night. Jesus Christ. Next news story. 2 Supreme Court cases this week could upend the entire internet. I am regretting to inform you that the only option in these cases, other than really towing the line and having a very, very soft decision that would make sense, these are both challenges to provisions within 230. I hate to tell you this, but if I was advising SCOTUS, I would tell them to rule for the tech giants in these cases. The problem is you've got Gonzalez v. Google and Twitter v. Tamne. Now, the problem is this. A proper challenge to 230 would be that the original inception of it was to make sure that a site was either a platform or a publisher. No in between. If they are a publisher, they can editorialize literally anything they want. So like foxnews.com, everything that's posted there is officially editorialized. They can post whatever they want. But if they post defamation, if they accidentally post something illicit, if they post a bomb-making recipe or something, they can be held accountable for that. If they are a platform, they are effectively saying we cannot editorialize. The flow of content is too much. We are acting as a platform for third parties to post videos, blog articles, etc. And so they gain protection from being sued for what's posted on their site because they're not a publisher. A proper challenge to 230 is to say certain companies like YouTube, certainly all the vlogging sites, even the less censored ones, sites that do blog, like even Substack, but like WordPress, Google as a parent company, Facebook, Meta in general, Instagram, Apple as a platform, especially with the app stores, and Google tangential to that. These companies claim 230 protections to shield themselves from lawsuits, but they act as publishers, at least situationally. That would be a proper challenge to those companies. These challenges are more about the necessity of companies censoring fucking goddamn more. And that's my problem with these two cases, is that if the tech firms are found to be culpable here, they'll end up censoring fucking more material. Because in one of these cases, it's not even that the material that was posted on the site happened to be illegal or anything like that. It was construed as encouraging a terroristic act. And so simply by encouraging that, and that's just literally just your opinion, man, for legal purposes, because it's not explicitly illegal, even that would have to be policed by these platforms. To rule in favor of the plaintiffs in these cases against Google and Twitter, respectively, ironically would destroy the internet, at least as the United States incepts it. I would find in favor of the tech companies or throw the goddamn cases out. I never would even want to fucking hear them. A proper challenge to 230 comes from the perspective of there are platforms and there are publishers. There is no in between. There's no hybrid system. Choose one, be it, and go along and do your thing. Because a publisher doesn't have to worry about being sued. Fox News, CNN, etc., they don't worry about some third party posting ISIS propaganda on their sites because everything's editorialized, because they can editorialize it. Sometimes something stupid slips through and they have to apologize for it, but they wouldn't face any real repercussions. Platforms are different. YouTube is a platform. Facebook, what is Facebook except a bunch of accounts made by individuals and groups communicating with each other anyway? It's a platform. That's all you need. Yeah, so I hate to say it, but they could easily destabilize the internet with these decisions. Scott Steiner, the world's greatest ring announcer. California Second Amendment rebuttals due today. Newsom blackpilled. Alexander Svensson, is Maine good for homesteading in your opinion? Maine is rather cold and swampy and remote. If you like mooses, though, I think you'd like it. I would choose New Hampshire instead of Maine. John Andrew, what's your take on the Ohio manufacturing plant explosion in my backyard? I probably will be covering that tomorrow. I did see that story. Virgil Walker, Sticks, any advice on handling social anxiety? Yeah, distract yourself with your phone. It's in vogue anyway. Just ignore the entire world around you. I don't do that because I've sort of trained myself anyway, and I really don't like phones, but I suppose it could be helpful for people. Ozzy's Robot, still wrestling with the horrible optics of senile Biden and Kiev giving away taxpayer money to corrupt Ukraine with media and uniparty support, while Americans in East Palestine are suffering. Unbelievable. Yeah, it is a little bit weird. Next news story. What's wrong with the chicken feed? Thank you to several people showing me this article yesterday. People are reporting that their chickens have stopped laying eggs and their feed might be the reason why. Now, I will qualify this before I talk about it. I can't guarantee that any of the stories of chickens suddenly not laying eggs are actually true. I don't have any evidence of that. And I do see that people are posting TikTok clips on here. So if you've got a TikTok account, it makes me I believe that your opinions can be a little bit more suspect than the non-TikTok population. I guess a bunch of adults are getting on there too, because it seems like a bunch of soccer moms now rule the site, which I'm sure pleases all of the teeny boppers and tweens that are on TikTok. Anyway, the idea is that certain kinds of feed now, they've been fucked with somehow, and the chickens aren't laying any eggs. And so they switch their food and then they start laying eggs again. It's entirely possible. It could be a bad batch, maybe an expired batch. It could be deliberate. It could be accidental. Or it could be that this is just attention seeking. And so here's the problem. I don't have any further thing to say with regards to the chicken feed situation because I don't have a bunch of chickens and I haven't tested the feed myself. It is important when you're relying on this kind of anecdotal report to take a step back and not jump fully into it and assume that what you're hearing is fully true or even necessarily half true. But it is entirely possible. You could have had some major manufacturer. They decided, well, we've got this older feed here. We're going to rebrand it as being recently packed. It's actually 2 years old, and then the chickens are being malnourished or something. Are corporations known for occasionally doing stuff like that? Oh, they are? Well, there you may have one of your answers. Again, or it could be coincidence, or it could be bullshit. I have absolutely no clue. But, yeah. I want to raise chickens someday. I think that they're cute. Liz doesn't like chickens so much. She thinks that they smell bad. I think that they have a nice smell. I think they smell kind of warm and, chickeny. And they do cute little noises and peck around. And they can save your garden a lot of trouble. You have a bunch of chickens that are able to free range in your garden. You have a lot less grubs and other pests. Chickens are great. Eggs are great too. Pokeslasher, just bought some greenhouses on clearance and materials for building a chicken coop. I can't wait to start growing my own food. Can't wait to do that too. Nelly Secundus. Sorry, I had to walk into work from earlier. I wouldn't support divorce if America returned to the framers' intention for who is eligible to vote. Yeah, I mean, we could do that too. It would be easier to do voting reform and return to like even full out landed gentry. It would be constitutionally easier to do that than it would be to have the national divorce. Yeah, and Morgan, I think our cats would be more afraid of the chickens than vice versa. I know on a lot of farms they coexist just fine. I mean, once in a while you might have a crazy rooster or a crazy tomcat or something. Next news story. Qualified immunity is burning a hole in the Constitution. This is a Politico report. I hate to tell you, but I found something on which the far left is actually correct on. Qualified immunity should go the way of the dinosaur. I just thought that I'd put that out there. I have no further comments on it. Other than the idea that a person can effectively air someone out, or you've got civil asset forfeiture too. You can fuck around with people, beat them into the ground, and be found not guilty simply because you have a badge on, I think is slightly problematic. Chickens are bad too. Not chickens are great. I will raise chickens in the future. The chickens can eat the bugs. I will eventually eat the chickens. Although I'm not a huge chicken fan. I like eggs. That's what I'd be raising them for. And Minecraft has taught me that I can make arrows. All I have to do is go and punch some trees and find some flint, and then I'm all set. I'm all good. And the final news story. Questions without answers for East Palestine residents. Now, I wanted to focus on the second line here. East Palestine homeowners wondering about property values in wake of derailment. And this is something that not a lot of people have picked up on. Does it matter if East Palestine is massively contaminated by forever chemicals or something, or reasonably permanently contaminated? No, it doesn't. The only thing that matters for the purposes of homeowners that are like, fuck this, and they want to leave, is how much they can get for their home. The problem is that you have a national news story that insinuates that there's permanent contamination there. We do have local contamination, that's known. We suspect that the contamination is considerably worse than the local authorities and the company Norfolk Southern are letting on. But even if that were completely untrue, the water really is fine to drink. Just ignore that oily shit or whatever it is in the creek bed. The fact that the town smells like chemicals is not actually a problem. It's in your imagination. Let's assume that they were right. Does that mean that the average person who's looking to relocate to a small town community is going to pay as much for a house that was a couple of blocks away from this particular explosion? No, they're not going to. They're going to be offering considerably less than that. The homeowners that are in this region are up shit creek without a paddle. This is a largely working class community. It is a semi-rural, small town, Rust Belt community. The people there do not have an enormous number of life savings, most of them. I'm sure that there are some upper class communities in the area, but for the most part, it's middle and lower middle and working class. The people there that own their homes are fucked because the home for people in that echelon of society tends to be the only real accruing investment that they have, the only thing that can fluctuate with. The rich have their yachts, etc. When there's inflation, the yacht's just valued more, it maintains its value. For most people, their home is the only thing that they have that's like that. Their car doesn't count. Cars depreciate. Even a collector's car over time, if it's being used at all, it's depreciating in value. Their nest egg is their house. It's all that they've got. And their house just happened to be 3 blocks away from the steaming wreckage of this particular train, spewing out hundreds of thousands or something gallons of vinyl chloride into the air. Nobody's going to want to move there. Do you think that I would buy a house there? If somebody, let's say someone had a house and it was $150K, it'd be reasonable for one of those homes, a lower middle class sort of thing, near a railroad. It's not the prime location. It's not terrible, but it's not the Ritz. They get a $150,000 home and they say, I can't have my kids near all these chemicals. Everything smells weird. I'm not confident that things are being cleaned up, so I'm moving. They put their house on the market for $150K. Styx, Hex, and Amber comes along. Yeah, I'm looking to buy a house. I don't mind the chemicals, maybe, but I'm not going to give you $150K because it's not worth that anymore on market. A smart person's not going to give them $150K. The house will sit on market for a year. They'll keep lowering the price. they might get, if they're lucky, 2/3 of the value of these homes at this point. They'll probably have to knock 30-40% off the value before they're going to get any potential buyers, which means that people who invested in those homes have lost money. They've been fucked. There's no other way to put it. People who have made it in that region, maybe they made expansions to their house. They painted it. They did some remodeling, nice landscaping and stuff. Even then, they're not going to get any of that investment back. What really should be done is Biden should be there instead of in Ukraine. Instead of worrying about people's pensions over in Europe, he should be in the United States and Ohio talking to people there and pledging some support. But there is no support forthcoming. FEMA will come in and help speed the cleanup of the local area, and they'll call it a day. And that's all that's going to happen. I feel very, very sorry for the people in that area. Thousands of them. By the way, let's say you're not there. You're not in East Palestine. You're in the next town over. Have your property prices been impacted? Potentially, yes. Has there ever been a news story about your community that was featured and talks about, well, the rain was acidic. Hey, my chickens died. Oh, really? Well, then you just lost maybe 5-10% of your property value. Let's say you're 100 miles downwind, but the same thing happened. Whoops. In your community, you can shave off a few K off of your retirement plan based on your home at this point. A lot of people in those areas are going to be having problems. Yeah, CatMD, this is where you're glad you were renting. Yeah, the rental property, if that gets devalued, maybe your rent goes down a little bit because they can't even find anyone that's not willing to renegotiate. You're like, hey, I'm going to stay in this area. I'm not paying you that $1,500 a month. Not for this chemically wasted dump. I'll pay you $1,350. No, yeah, and then the landlord goes out of business or something. Sophia recommends stop paying taxes. So do others. That would be a bad idea because the IRS is weaponized. They have actual assault weapons, not like the ones in civilian hands. Yeah, Girth Brooks is partially right. The partisan distribution of this area is one reason why the Biden admin doesn't prioritize it. The other thing is it happens to be in a state that's not prioritized. The Rust Belt, of course, swinging wildly back in the Republican direction. Anyway, I think I'm going to go offline here in a minute. I'm going to Jank Uger's Sweaty Gunt on Rumble. I assume insurance companies will weasel out of paying homeowners in Ohio, huh? Yeah, they probably will. I think not everyone there has insurance that would cover such a thing. Oh, your house lost 30% of its value? Well, there was no fire. There was no earthquake. There was no flood. Nothing directly impacted you. It's all in your head. The government tells us it's all in your head and the chemicals aren't there anymore. The water's fine, so you don't get jack shit. Yes, they will try to label it an act of God, says Mac Turner. I agree completely. And one last one, Apache. Did you see the Ohio EPA Twitter post? Them drinking water saying it's safe, but there's a smart water bottle on the counter just out of frame. Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. So yeah, I'm going to go offline now because I want to preserve my voice. Thank you to the roughly 6,000 people who have tuned in here. Of course, I will be live again tomorrow. Tonight, I'm taking it easy because I passed the Dutch theory exam. Tomorrow, I will make a video advising other Americans on what to expect in that test and giving some very needed advice. That's about all. Peace.